Hello, and welcome to a Pokemon XD Gale Darkness video, where today we will be completing the game with the Grumpig line. Now, today is Thanksgiving, so I thought what better Pokemon to do than the pig Pokemon. And while I don't really have an attachment to Grumpig, it certainly isn't too bad, at least judging by its stats and move pool, which it has 60 HP, 25 attack, 35 defense, 70 special attack, 80 special defense, and 60 speed, and gets access to mostly normal and psychic type moves. However, it does get electric, ghost, ice, and fighting type moves as well, which might come in handy, though the fighting type moves aren't very good, and Shockwave's a bit of a low base power, as well as we are mostly special attackers, so the ghost type move isn't going to be nearly as effective, but having the type coverage does help. So with that, let's go ahead and get right into it. Our Spoink in particular has an adamant nature, raising its attack and lowering its special attack. Okay, well that's not great, but at least my normal type attacks will hit a little harder, I guess. It gets access to the Thick Fat ability, which essentially makes me resistant to both ice and fire type attacks by cutting their attack down by half, so that'll be very helpful throughout the game. And according to Bulbapedia, it gets Psywave, Odor Sleuth, and Splash. Okay, well Splash doesn't do anything, Odor Sleuth only allows me to hit Ghost types, which I can already do, and Psywave is an 80% accurate Psychic type move that does random damage based on your level, I believe. And unfortunately with this moveset, I can't actually hit Dark types at all, so I'm going to teach Mimic, that way I can copy a move and actually be able to take him down. And usually I like to show this fight just to see how a Pokemon's going to do in the early game, because usually this points out a lot of flaws that a Pokemon has. I go for Psywave, and as you can see, the biggest thing there is just inconsistent damage. Now, because I have Mimic, I can actually teach myself Fire Punch, and that's going to do much better damage against everything. So as we can see here, I'm actually able to take down the Abra. Not sure if that crit mattered, but it certainly helps. And I go for another Fire Punch. Not quite enough to take out the Shroomish, but certainly better than what Psywave would have been able to accomplish. So I go for another one, finish off the Shroomish, and then all that's left is the Horsey, who has just been lowering my defense this entire time. I go for Fire Punch, because at least it's consistent damage, and there's always the chance that it could burn, and it looks to be a 3-shot, so just after a couple more of those... Oh, never mind, I ran out of PP on it. Well, a Psywave finishes it off. And we move on into our first Spoink. Hello, other Spoink. It just used Odor Sleuth the entire time. Anyway, I take it down and move on to the Power Rangers. I decide to fight Green first because I have to get to level 16 in order to learn my next move. And because its Pokemon are fairly weak, it should be pretty easy. Unfortunately, I get poisoned on the first Poison Sting, and my Psywaves really aren't doing that much damage, so eventually I lose. And quick rambling, if you are liking this video so far, consider liking, and if you have any Pokemon suggestions, put them down below. And happy Thanksgiving. Anyway, so I'm already down pretty low on health, Absorb takes me down nearly to nothing, and Poison finishes me off. So I decide to go to Mount Battle just to do a little bit of training, and to get up to level 16 in order to learn Psybeam, a halfway decent move. And as you can see here, I decided to not actually get rid of Psywave, and that's because it's currently my best way of dealing with anything that resists Psychic types. And with the extra training from Mount Battle, and the much stronger Psybeam, I'm able to completely wipe the floor with Purple here. The only thing that could even slightly threaten me is if the Grimer decided to use Disable, so I'd have to start using Psywave again. But nothing here really threatens me at this point. I go for another Psybeam, and Gulpin actually survives, and nearly takes me down in a single hit. Okay, maybe I was wrong, but I'm able to take it down. And Grimer actually misses a Disable here, so I'm able to take it down in a single hit and beat Purple. At level 25, I learn Confuse Ray, which I'm going to teach over Odor Sleuth. And inside the building, I run into another Spoink. Goodbye, other Spoink. And at level 32, our Spoink, our beautiful baby boy, evolves into Grumpig. Okay, I'll be honest with you, I've never enjoyed the design of Grumpig. But anyway, it is an improvement with 80 HP, 45 attack, 65 defense, 90 special attack, 110 special defense, and 80 speed. And with the higher special defense stat, it should be surviving attacks a lot better, as well as a pretty decent special attack stat, so it hits pretty good. 80 HP is decent, and 80 speed is pretty good for this game. So let's see how it does against our first boss, Lavrina. She leads with a Love Disc and a Beautifly, and I go for Psybeam into the Beautifly and take it down in a single hit. Out comes Roselia, which is part Poison type, so I know I'm going to be able to take it down. And then out comes her final Pokemon, which is a Shadow Delcatty, and probably the only Pokemon that could survive a hit from me. So I go for Psybeam into it, and it actually just survives on a sliver, so there's a good chance that I got either a bad range or just needed one more level. But it goes down anyway, and Love Disc goes down, and I beat Lavrina on the first attempt. Okay, well, we move on to the obligatory Mirabee. How are you doing on this fine day, Mirabee? Well, good to see you. Anyway, at level 37, I learned the move Psychic, which is just better Psybeam, so I go ahead and teach that right away. And at the top of the ONVS building, I go ahead and catch this Ralts, because it is holding the Twisted Spoon item, which raises all Psychic attacks by 10%. And at the Realgam Tower, I pick up my two favorite TMs, Protect and Hidden Power, and I'm going to go ahead and teach Hidden Power right away over Mimic. And even though in the last video I said that Rock is the best, because of my low attack stat, it's not actually that great, and as it turns out, it's only 30 base power. Anyway, at the Tutor Lady, I go ahead and teach Body Slam over Psywave, and soon after, I get the move Rest, which I'm going to teach over Hidden Power, and I run into another Spoink. Goodbye, Spoink. We then move on to Snaddle, who leads with a Quagsire and a Lantern, and I'm able to take down the Quagsire in a single Psychic. Out comes Lunatone, definitely the biggest threat he has, because I don't think I'm able to take it down in a single hit, but despite being resisted, Psychic actually takes it down below half. It sets up Shadow Skies, so Fruity Pebbles rain down. I go for another Psychic to finish it off, get a crit, but it's not like it mattered. Out comes Cast Form, more Fruity Pebbles, and I use another Psychic to take down the Cast Form, and then out comes his final Pokemon, which is a Matang. Now this quadruply resists Psychic, so it's definitely pretty threatening. But before I get to it, I take down the Lantern. It goes for Metal Claw, not really doing that much damage, but the Fruity Pebble damage is going to start hurting. I go for Confuse Ray, and that's so I can set up Rest on the next turn in order to start healing up. It doesn't hit itself. I go for a Call to wake it up early. Doesn't hit itself again. I go for Psychic, which takes it down to nearly half. It hits itself once again. I go for one last Psychic, which crits and takes it down. Oh, hello, other Grumpig. Goodbye, other Grumpig. And we move on to Gonsap, who leads with a Nuzleaf and Electrode. Because I don't have Protect, I am going to get hit by the Fake Out here and the Sonic Boom. I go for a Psychic to finish off the Electrode. And then out comes Vileplume. Nuzleaf goes for Hyper Beam and misses. Psychic finishes off Vileplume. Out comes Whiscash. Another Hyper Beam. And that does a decent amount of damage to me. Psychic takes down the Whiscash, and then all that's left is the Skarmory, which does resist me, so I go for Body Slam to finish off Nuzleaf. And just as I did before, I go for Confuse Ray to make the Skarmory hopefully hit itself. It goes for Hyper Beam and hits. I go for Body Slam, and that does almost nothing. I go for Psychic now, which does way more damage. And it nearly takes itself down, but I take it down and beat Gonzap on the first attempt. Okay, well at the top of the pyramid I run into another Grumpig, and then we move on to Gorgon, who leads with a Celio and a Lairon. I go for Psychic to take down the Celio in a single hit, and then out comes Slowking. I go for Confuse Ray into the Lairon, just so it can't hit me nearly as often. The Slowking goes for Headbutt, not really doing that much damage. I go for Psychic into it, not really doing that much damage either. It goes for Earthquake, not doing too much. I go for Body Slam, which nearly takes it down, but looks like it would have been a 3-shot anyway. Confusion, as long as I don't get confused, I'm good. Lairon goes for Protect, I take down the Slowking, and then out comes Ursaring. And I go straight into Psychic into Ursaring to take it down. And then out comes his first Shadow Pokemon, which is a Primeape. Lairon actually breaks out of Confusion, so now it's back to being kind of threatening. It's trying to use a 70% accurate move though. I go for Body Slam into the Hypno, taking it down past half, and its Shadow Storms really aren't doing that much damage to me. Iron Tails could start doing more, but unfortunately it's not got enough time to use them. And this whole time I was kind of playing around the Lairon like it was going to be this huge threat. I go for one Psychic and take it down. So with that, we move on to the last area of the game, and Grumpig is actually doing very well. And if it can keep this momentum going, it could place pretty high on the tier list. Anyway, immediately on the island, I find this Sableye here, and I hadn't realized it before, but Sableye is a perfect counter to me. I can't hit it with my Psychic or normal type moves, so I had to rely on Confuse Ray to take it down. So immediately after, I go ahead and teach Shadow Ball over Confuse Ray, and we move on to Lavrina once again. She leads with a Gardevoir and a Gorbis. I take down the Gardevoir because it will use Attract on me on the first turn. Then out comes Roselia, which will also just use Attract on me, so I decide to take it down now. Out comes Farfetch'd. Now this one has a 50% chance to confuse, which I don't want to deal with, so I take it down. And then the last Pokemon is Altaria. And Gorbis goes for Water Pulse and confuses me. Well, a little unlucky, but unless I get terrible luck, I shouldn't lose. Water Pulse. I go for another Psychic. I hit myself again. Get taken down very low. Luckily I have Rest though, so I should be able to heal up. Okay, well that's just very unfortunate. So right back into the battle again. I went ahead and skipped forward. And this time I don't get confused. I take down the Gorbis in a single hit. And then all that's left is the Altaria. I go for Psychic, which doesn't take it down in a single turn, but it's very close. And with that, I finish off Lavrina on the second attempt. And I run into a Grumpig in the volcano. I take it down with Shadow Ball. And then I run into yet another Grumpig very soon after. At the top of the mountain, I run into Snaddle, who leads with a Quagsire and a Metang. I go for Psychic to take down the Quagsire, that way it can't lower my speed. And then out comes Scizor. I go for Shadow Ball to do half of Metang's health. Silverwind does quite a bit to me. Metal Claw's not really doing that much though. Another Shadow Ball finishes off the Metang. And then out comes Solrock, who is a Shadow Pokemon. Silverwind takes me down below half. I go for Shadow Ball to not quite finish off the Solrock. Okay, well that's unfortunate. It sets up Shadow Sky, so now I can't heal anymore. I go for Rest here, just to get my health back up to full. Shadow Rave's not really doing that much damage, and as long as it doesn't get an Omni boost, which it does, I don't think I can survive the War of Attrition anymore. It takes me down very low, and the Fruity Pebbles finish me off. Okay, well the solution's pretty obvious here. I take down the Quagsire just as before, out comes the Scizor, and instead of targeting the Metang this time, I need to get rid of the Scizor, which looks to be a two-shot, and I'm able to take it down with another Psychic. And then out comes the Solrock once again. Now I did use a rare candy this time, so I could guarantee one-shot it. So I go for Shadow Ball and finish it off. And then out comes Castform. And I go for a Rest here just to get myself up to full health before the Starmie comes out. Now I don't really think I'm going to be outsped, but there's no reason to risk it. And these two can't really do that much damage to me. I go for Psychic to take down the Castform. Out comes Starmie, which is part Psychic type, so my Ghost type move should do super effective damage and take it down in a single hit, which it does. And then all that's left is Metang, which I know is a two-shot with Shadow Ball. And one last Metal Claw in vain before I finish it off. Okay, well that's Snaddle on the second attempt, not too bad. We move on to Ardos, who leads with a Shadow Swallow and Alakazam. Luckily I outspeed both, and I take down the Alakazam first. The Swallow goes for Shadow Half. I take down the Kingdra here, and then out comes Heracross, and I go for Psychic to take down the Swallow this turn. And unfortunately the Heracross is going to use Rock Tomb, which does hit and lowers my speed, which makes me slower than the Electabuzz, and it hits a crit Shadow Storm, doing a ton of damage to me. I'm able to take it down in a single hit though. And the Heracross uses another Rock Tomb, getting a crit as well, very unfortunate, and I am now slower than it, and it finishes me off. Okay, well, I think the first attempt I was just muck-brained, because Alakazam really isn't that big of a threat. So I take down the Swallow on the first turn, followed by the Kingdra. The next, out comes Heracross again. And as long as the Thunder Punch doesn't paralyze me, I'm in pretty good shape. I take it down, Electabuzz comes out, and I don't get paralyzed there. I take down the Electabuzz, and he brings out his last Pokemon, which is a Shadow Snorlax. Now this thing is a pretty big threat because of my low defense, and unfortunately I do get paralyzed here, and somehow the Snorlax is faster than me. Okay, well I take down the Alakazam and don't get paralyzed. I go for Body Slam into it, which gets a crit and takes it down. Okay, well that's Eldest on a second attempt. Moving on to Gorgon once again. I go for Shadow Ball into the Slowking, taking it down in a single hit. Out comes Aggron. And after the first battle with it, I thought I could one-shot it with Psychic. I can't. It survives on a thread. I decide to take down the Ursaring this turn though, because between the two, I know that the Aggron has a potential to miss its Iron Tails. I go for a rest here, just to heal up what I can. Double Edge doesn't really do that much damage to me. I call. Another Double Edge. And Aggron hits another Iron Tail, taking me to half. I go for Psychic to take down the Walrein. And then out comes the Shadow Poliwrath. And usually I would always focus on getting rid of it first, but this time, because it's only setting up Shadow Sky and I can always just out-heal the chip damage, it's not that big of a threat. And so out comes the Mr. Mime. I go for Psychic to take down the Poliwrath. Shadow Storm, doing a bit of damage, but not enough to really threaten me. And I go for Shadow Ball to take down the Mr. Mime and beat Gorgon on the first attempt. Okay, well we move on to Eldest, who leads with a Shadow Manectric and Ninjask. I outspeed the Manectric and take it down in a single hit. Out comes Salamence. And Ninjask is going to use Silver Wind every turn. So unfortunately I'm going to be taking quite a bit of damage from that. Salamence isn't quite a one-shot with Psychic. I go for Body Slam to finish it off. And Ninjask gets an Omni Boost. Then out comes Flygon, who may or may not be a one-shot because I get taken down here. Well, it's pretty obvious what needs to be done, and even though I really wanted to keep using Rest, it's just not that great anymore. So I replace it with Protect, and go back into the fight once again, take down Manectric just as before. And every other turn I'm just going to use Protect, because Silver Wind does quite a bit of damage to me, and the fewer times I can use it, the fewer chance it has to get an Omni Boost. So I use Body Slam into the Salamence. I actually get a Paralysis, which is pretty lucky, but it doesn't actually get paralyzed. I go for Protect here, and then Psychic to take it down, hopefully. Which it does. Unfortunately, I did get crit by the last Silver Wind. I go for Psychic to take down the Flygon in a single hit. And then out comes Marowak. Now this thing could be a threat if it actually is able to survive a single Psychic. I go for Protect here. Psychic to take it down, which it does, and then out comes Lapras. And unfortunately I do have to attack this turn because Lapras is going to set up Shadow Sky. I go for Psychic and takes it down below half, so it's a guaranteed 2-shot. Another Psychic to finish it off, and then all that's left is the Ninjask, which I don't think has the strength to actually take me down in a single hit. Aerial Ace does get a crit, but it goes down. Okay, well moving on to the big box legendary, Shadowlugia. I use Shadow Ball, which looks to be a 3-shot. And it's not doing that much damage to me though, with Shadow Blast. I go for Body Slam this turn, just to see how much it's going to do, and it does way less. Protect again, it gets a crit. I go for Shadow Ball, and finish it off. Okay, well let's go into the final battle. So he leads with a Shadow Rhydown and Shadow Moltres. I go for Protect here just to heal up a little bit before I go into it. Psychic doesn't one-shot the Moltres, but it is fairly close. And Shadow Wind finishes me off. Okay, well after doing just a little bit of training and using my rare candies, I now still don't one-shot the Moltres. Okay, well that's a bit unfortunate. Rhydon actually misses its Shadow End, and I finish off the Moltres with a Body Slam. Then out comes Executor. Another Shadow End misses. I go for Psychic to take down the Rhydon, because between the two, Rhydon does way more damage. And then Executor misses. Okay, this is actually really lucky. I take down the Tauros in a single hit. Out comes Articuno. And the first Shadow Wind hits, not really doing that much damage to me. I go for Protect here. And then go for Psychic into the Articuno, doing well over half. And I don't get frozen. Another Shadow Wind hits. I go for another Protect. And then I finish off the Articuno with Psychic. And then out comes his final Pokemon, which is a Shadow Zapdos. Shadow End hits again, taking me down to about third in my health. Protect again. And then I go for Shadow Ball to take down Executor, and then all that's left is the Zapdos. It goes for Shadow Bolt, and I don't get paralyzed. And I go for Psychic, which takes it down in a single hit, and we beat the game with Grumpig. So, how did it do? Well, it beat the game at 8 hours 51 minutes and 4 seconds at level 84, with 12 faints throughout the game. Which is surprising considering it started off the game with a really bad move in Psywave. And it also had the Adamant Nature, which was lowering its special attack the entire time. Now, it did probably come in handy for some of the Body Slams and Shadow Balls, but I think it's probably worse overall compared to other natures it could have had. And it also had a really weak hidden power as well, and some pretty bad type coverage. So what I think it comes down to is pretty decent, well-balanced stats, as well as a decent typing for this game, is what really pushed it to the top of A+ tier. It's not quite as good as Nidoking, which is what's keeping it out of S, but it is certainly a really good Pokemon that actually doesn't really struggle against any boss particularly, only having 2 losses against 5 of them. All the others were all first try victories. And another thing to note is I didn't realize how many trainers in this game actually had a Spoink or Grumpig until doing this. It's more than I thought, so apparently they must also like Thanksgiving as well. And these videos really helped me to appreciate some under-recognized Pokemon. Like Grumpig, I have never really thought twice about because I just do not like its design, and I didn't really think much of it. It's really proven itself to me that it's pretty decent. I still don't like the look of it though. Unlike Spoink, because Spoink is great. Love the design for Spoink. I don't know why they got rid of the little pink sphere pearl in the head and replaced it with the dark ones. Anyway, I'm rambling, so if you did enjoy this video, consider liking and subscribing. If you have any Pokemon suggestions, put them down below. And, bye.